Yeah, I really enjoyed doing Kingdom Life School. It was you learned so much about your identity as a child of God, and have brilliant opportunities to impact people's lives when you do outreach and stuff, and also explore different ways of being creative. I think I'd say it's a life-changing couple of years for me, and I'd highly recommend it to anyone who's thinking of taking up the challenge.
Welcome to this session entitled Art as Outreach, in which you will be joining Amanda Waite, professional artist Amanda Waite, ex-KLS student Fiona Okai, and also me, as we share some of our experiences so far in using art as a very enjoyable and effective means of outreach. Together, we've used our artistic skills in a wide range of different contexts to provide a means for people to interact with God and experience something of His love and His kingdom. Contexts such as a carnival, an art exhibition, a youth club, a conference, doctor's surgery, a shopping centre, and as part of both overseas and UK mission trips. But before sharing any examples, I just want to take a moment to credit an amazing guy called Jörn Langer, who's played a pioneering role in developing this form of ministry as outreach. And you'll hear a little bit more about him at the end of this video. So I'm going to kick off now by just sharing very briefly a couple of situations where I have, with my quite limited artistic skills, used art as part of outreach. And the first place I'd like to share, in fact the very first place I used this, was in Spain. I was in the city of Valencia as part of an equipping team. My Spanish is extremely limited, and so what I did, because we were inviting people to make appointments to come and hear encouraging words from God, I asked God ahead of time and made some very small and simple pastel drawings. And then as the guests came to receive their word, I simply asked Holy Spirit, which image is for this person? And under that kind of guidance would show the picture to the person, and with the help of an interpreter, ask what it meant to them, whether it's significant to them, and share what the Holy Spirit began to illuminate as their word of encouragement. And the Holy Spirit is a genius. He knew already who was coming, what image would be of specific significance to them, and that was really exciting, just partnering really with the Holy Spirit to reach a person's heart. And the beauty of this is that I could then give the little picture to the person as a gift that they could take away, keep and ponder, and the Holy Spirit obviously could continue to speak to them through that. Second example I'd like to share happened earlier this year when I was part of a team, and we were invited to a large youth and kids club evening event, not necessarily for Christians, but all kinds of local youngsters. And they had several rooms at this event, with table tennis going on and music and different things, a cafe, but there was a craft space. So I set myself up in the craft space just with paper and pencils and started to doodle away. And then youngsters would approach me and asked me what I was doing. So I would say, well, I'm here available to share with you an image that I'm going to ask God for, if you would like, and I'll sketch it for you, and you can see what he might be wanting to say to you through this. And it was surprising how many kids came up, and others came to sort of be spectators of this, their friends. And so I would just simply start to sketch, and as I would draw near the end of the sketch, I would I think this is really important, especially with minors, ask them questions rather than tell them things. So I would say, does this mean anything to you? Or I wonder why God might have dropped this particular image into my mind. What is its significance to you? And then finally, maybe something like, what do you think God might be saying to you through this? And this was such an adventure. And it was plain to see from their body language that A, they were enjoying hearing from God, and B, that they felt encouraged, loved, uniquely known through this particular means. And in some cases later, parents came up to me and said, wow, that was amazing. My young boys brought this picture home, is absolutely thrilled with it. How did you know that such and such a thing would be so significant to them? And it would give me an opportunity to talk about what a genius the Holy Spirit is. And they would report to me that this has given their child encouragement or future hope, built up their self-esteem in some way, and I could really see the fruit from it. So now I pass you over to hear from both Fiona and Amanda, their examples, and I hope you really enjoy this module.
I only really have two experiences of using art in outreach, both on KLS. One was when we were doing outreach in Poole Town Centre. There were some ladies that were having their hands massaged, and while they were getting their massages, I asked God for some pictures for them and painted them for them, so that after they'd finished, I was able to approach them and share the pictures with them and give them to them to keep. And whilst that didn't really lead to any significant lengthy conversations, it was clear that they were really blessed by those pictures and the experience that they'd had. And as they walked out, I could hear them commenting to each other, oh, that was really good what they're doing here, isn't it? It's really lovely. So it was great to be able to kind of bless them in that way. And the second experience that I had was on an equipping trip, and we visited a home group in another church, and we spent the evening really talking about prophecy and then practicing prophecies over each other. And one of the things that we did was share some photographs, just kind of laid out a whole selection of photographs and asked people to choose a photo that they felt just that they were drawn to, or that really spoke to them. And then the group prophesied over each person as they chose that image. And while that was happening, I was asking God for an image to draw for each person. I didn't spend very long on it, just a few minutes, just kind of sketching what I felt God had given me as an image. And it was really encouraging how those images linked in to what was happening that evening. Two people in particular, or two images, really stood out for me. One lady chose a photograph of a sunflower, And I was really excited because the image that I'd drawn for her was a flower. So it was really encouraging having listening to those prophetic words that she was given, and then being able to share the image that I'd already drawn for her and see how it all just really linked in. I'd felt this sense that I'd had as I was drawing the flower was something about uniqueness and preciousness. And yeah, so it was just really exciting how that, what are the chances that she chose a flower and I'd already drawn a picture of a flower for her. And then the second one that really stood out was a man chose a photograph of knotted rope. And it was quite a negative image for him. He was really reflecting on how he felt kind of stuck and knotted up. And he had prophecies from people about strength and God giving him strength through a situation. And again, I was really encouraged because I was able to then share that I'd already drawn a picture of a sword for him with the word strength on it, which really tied into the prophecies that he'd been given. And it really felt like as I gave that image to him and he reflected on it, that some of his thinking about his situation and his kind of stuckness really changed as he reflected on strength that God had already given him. So what I've really been reflecting on is that pictures, I think, are often more accessible and more easily remembered than words. When we receive a long message, it's quite easy to forget parts of the message or get bits muddled or not be able to hold on to all of it. And I think an image is much easier to recall and remember and bring back to mind. And I think also the images on that evening were really helpful because they really reinforced the messages that people had been given and seemed to really tie in with what God was saying. He really seemed to kind of bring all of those different elements together. And being able to take away an image meant that people really had a physical reminder of the words that God had given that evening and that people had been sharing, which hopefully was a real encouragement going forward because it was something that they were potentially able to hold on to and get out in the future and remind themselves of what God had spoken. I have just found artwork really encouraging, both for me in my walk with God, but also being able to share those pictures with others and encourage them on their journeys.
Hi, I'm Amanda, and I'd like to share a couple of my experiences of using painting and drawing as an artistic expression in outreach. So one of the first memories that I have was not long after I'd done the Healing Rooms training up in Dorchester, and I'd had the privilege of partnering up with Mike Robinson, where they were holding ministry and prayer from the GP practice. So this lady had signed up, and Mike asked the lady what she would like prayer for, and I sat quietly in the corner with my pastel paper and oil pastels. And I asked Jesus, what is it you would like to bless this precious lady with in this season? So normally, those of us who have got an artistic inclination, it's quite common to operate in the seer realm. So for us to get a picture, it's quite instinctive. So straight away I got a picture of an opened oyster shell with a beautiful pearl being held in the centre. So when the prayer session was coming to a close, I'm always amazed at how God dovetails collaboration together for for proclaiming his goodness over somebody. And what Mike had prayed confirmed what the Holy Spirit had given me for the drawing. You could see her being built up and a sense of that she had real value, and it spoke deeply into her identity. The second memory I'd like to share was when local artists were invited to produce a piece of artwork. And it could be any medium, it could be film or sculpture, some kind of installation, poetry, painting, drawing, for an exhibition themed, "What does home mean to you?" And this was an opportunity for people in the local community, in the centre of the village at Litchett, Matravers, to be able to walk off the street, walk through the exhibition and really mull over and digest what each exhibitor had produced. And that was a great way of outreach, giving people that space and that time to ponder. And for me, it was a very personal journey. Home for me was all about connection, relationship, and belonging to God. And then the third one that comes to mind was actually here at the Kingdom Life School. And one of the students had signed up for our prophetic booth. So we had two of the team prophesying, and I sat quietly in the corner again with my art materials. But this time, rather than drawing the first thing that came to my mind, I allowed the Holy Spirit that time to give me more revelation, letting it play out like a movie in the back of my mind. So immediately I got a picture of a woodland, and then the woodland changed perspective, and I was looking at the floor bed of the woodland, and I could see bluebells as far as the eye could see. And most bluebells face down, but on this particular occasion there was one bluebell facing up amongst all the other bluebells. And I faithfully sketched this out, and as the session was drawing to a close, I was able to share the image with the lady and ask her, "Does this mean anything to you?" And it became very clear as the Holy Spirit helped them to unpack it. It was for her daughter-in-law, and it spoke deeply of salvation. So that was really wonderful to witness, and to hear God for others, to bring encouragement, pulling heaven down to earth, and coming into agreement to see breakthrough in people's lives. It's just a really fun and joyous thing to do through the creative arts. So really looking forward to catching up with you in the activation sessions. Hi everyone, we've gathered together to show you how the activation works when we use art as outreach. So this is an activation demo. So just to reassure you, what materials do you need to do this? Really simple. You don't need very much. You can either have cartridge or pastel paper, some colouring pencils, soft pastels or oil pastels, something that's really easy to travel with if you're on the move in the community. And the other thing I want to reassure you about is that you don't need to be an art expert to do this, okay? As long as you've got some kind of basic artistic skill level, you are definitely qualified. So to give you an experience and to give you an idea, I went to David's tent and I was blessed to receive a picture from another artist, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. Really quite simple and quite basic. But actually, this stays folded up in the back of my Bible, and every time I take it out, I'm so encouraged, and I'm able to stand on God's promise that He spoke in that season. So I'd like to pass you over to Heather, and she's going to share a little bit about what her role is going to be in our activation demo. So over to you, Heather.
Thanks, Mandy. So in this style of artist outreach, we have a team working together. The first person is an artist, and today that's Mandy. And the second is somebody just friendly, ready to welcome and to chat to the guest who's come to receive the word. And that's my role. I'm going to be the one welcoming, chatting, and keeping note of time. So, you know, if you're doing several of these appointments during an afternoon, say, the role I'm playing would make sure that everybody got their proper time slot. So I'm going to pass you over now to the third participant, and that's Fiona.
So I'm Fiona, and I've come along today in the role of the guest to really receive from God and to see what He might be saying to me today. And Mandy.
Okay, so being the artist, I'm going to be waiting on the Lord and asking Holy Spirit to download what He wants to say to Fiona today to really bless her in this season. So I'm just going to spotlight my artist desk so you can see up close what's happening while Heather and Fiona are chatting.
So, you know, if this was in a person-to-person context, maybe in a tent at a carnival or something like that, I would welcome Fiona and invite her to take a seat in front of the artist, just, you know, help her to feel at ease. Today we're doing this in an online context, but it's very much the same. And the aim is that there's not an awkward silence between the artist and the recipient, as the artist is quietly listening to God for an image or a word to start off with. And the recipient can be as relaxed as possible. So here we go. So welcome, Fiona. Have a seat. I think you're going to enjoy this. As we just chat away now, you'll be able to see Mandy beginning work. And, you know, if you get questions about what she's doing, just hold them in your mind, because as she draws to a close of her drawing, then there'll be a chance for you to chat to her about it and ask her why. So firstly, you know, let me just ask you a little bit about yourself, Fiona. What kind of role do you have in life? Are you working?
Yeah, I work part-time. I'm a children's psychologist.
Oh.
So I work in schools with children who've got, often children who've got special educational needs, and working out what they might need in school to support them. And I went part-time a few years ago when I had my little boy James. He's now 4.
He's 4, did you say?
Yeah, he's just turned 4, a few weeks ago.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's been really nice actually. I've really enjoyed this sort of new phase of working part-time, and then having these special days with him as well.
So how have you negotiated all this lockdown period?
To begin with, it was really a big challenge because James didn't have any nursery school provision initially in lockdown.
Yeah.
So my husband Albert and I were sharing childcare while still trying to do our normal work hours, which was a little bit impossible.
But the 3-year-old around, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was definitely a challenge, stretched us. But I think James really enjoyed it actually, because he was getting lots more family time.
Yeah.
Not going to nursery and just being with us the whole time.
Mm.
Then nursery kind of started up fairly soon. His Albert school gave James a nursery place so that he could
Okay, yeah.
Like a child, and
So you could both work, and he got a little bit of nursery.
yeah, he loved it.
You haven't been too worried about COVID-19 and all of that for him going into nursery?
No, we've just been really trusting that it will be fine and that God's looking after us, and yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
At that age, they really want to see other kids, don't they?
They do, and because we don't have any other children, we're very aware that he's really on his own with us a lot of the time. So I think it's really important for him to be having some nursery experience whenever we can give that to him, so he gets that chance to be with others. And he absolutely loves being with other children, really craves their contact sometimes. So yeah, he's been really excited to be back at nursery.
That's brilliant. So brilliant. You said you thought perhaps he quite enjoyed having that contact time with you initially in lockdown. You know, what were some of the good things that you did together that you can?
We did camping in the garden.
Oh, wow.
It was quite early on in lockdown, and it was absolutely freezing. I barely slept.
Easily.
He slept through it all. I did say to Albert, should we just like quietly take him into the house now, because he's a very deep sleeper and he won't know. But then we were like, he'd be disappointed in the morning to find himself in his bed, so we stuck it out for the night. And he loved it. Was really excited.
It does get surprisingly cold at night, doesn't it, when you're camping?
Yeah. We were on an airbed, and I thought that would give us some protection because we were off the ground, but no, the air was just freezing beneath us. So yeah, needed to put down some newspapers or something.
Go to bed fully clothed with all your layers on to get through. Well, he enjoyed the camping anyway then.
He definitely did, and we've done some camping inside since then. So put up fairy lights in the lounge and have a sleepover in the lounge, which he's really been excited by.
I love that idea. That is so cool.
It just takes him forever to get off to sleep though, because he's so excited.
Yeah, I know, but I think that's the sort of stuff that memories are made of, aren't they? You know,
definitely.
It will be etched on his memory, and you know that gives a great sense of family doing something like that. Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely. And then the other really exciting thing that we've done over lockdown, as lockdown restrictions have been kind of lifted, is we bought an inflatable kayak. So like a 3-man kayak, so there's seats for all of us on it, and it's so much fun just getting out on the river or on the sea and just being together and going for picnics, and yeah, it's been really good.
Brilliant. How does that actually inflate then?
It's got a kind of a hand pump.
Oh right, you don't have to.
No. I think the seats you can kind of get away with doing that like that, but yeah, no, the main thing has to all be done to like a real specific pressure. So yeah, it's got quite a lot of air in there.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I presume you have to have various safety bits for a little one going out on a kayak, but
yeah, so he's got his own life jacket. He had that already because my parents quite often take him out on their boat. And then we bought some buoyancy aids for ourselves, and yeah, some dry bags to take some spare clothing in case we get wet. And yeah, we've got a system now. We've got a routine.
I mean, thank goodness we've actually had the weather through this period to be able to do some outside things, because you know, in your case, having a little boy, they need that outside time, don't they? Get, you know, frantic otherwise.
Yeah, it's been amazing. It feels like it's been such a blessing. I think the experience would have been really different if the weather had not been like that. We've just been able to get out pretty much every day and really enjoy doing something outside together. It's been great. Yeah.
Really good. Really good. I like your stripy t-shirt. Mind me asking where you got that from?
I think it's white stuff. I think, yeah.
White stuff.
White stuff,
I love that shop. Yeah, really good. I mean, it's dangerous if I go in there because I just like their stuff so much. Mind you, this year has been a very different year for me, clothing wise, because I made a decision at the beginning of the year. I wanted to make a little bit of a contribution to the whole kind of eco awareness movement in a way that I thought I could sustain it. And I decided that what I wanted to do was to have a year where I found to find out what would happen if I didn't buy anything new from those kind of my favorite shops, but if I wanted something, that I would just get it secondhand from somewhere like a charity shop or something like that. And so be recycling and reusing something, but also to say to myself, if I'm going to buy that thing, I've got to throw 2 things out from my current wardrobe, so that I would weigh up how much do I really want this, you know?
Yeah.
And of course, that's been affected by lockdown. I must just pause a moment to say to Mandy, you've got 2 more minutes, Mandy, with your beautiful piece of art there. You know, I haven't been to any shops, in fact, but do you know, I haven't needed anything. And, you know, I think probably, you know, it's been a real eye-opener to me. You know, of course, undies and things like that, you've got to still get somehow. But I've felt really, really content actually with a smaller wardrobe and a narrower choice, just much easier to choose what to wear and all of that. So yeah, it's been a good thing. Have you and your family got any plans for a little break or a holiday or anything?
No, we haven't made any plans. After this week we'll all be off together for the summer holidays for 6 weeks. But we haven't planned to go away anywhere yet. We might do something last minute, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. Usually we'd go and do like an Airbnb somewhere in this country for a couple of weeks. Usually we do that over Easter, but obviously with everything that was going on, we couldn't do that. So we haven't done anything this year, but it's just been really nice to have this time just together. So haven't really missed it. And I think being able to get out so much has made such a big difference. But,
Absolutely.
I love your idea of your clothing idea. I think Albert would love it if I would do that. Mine just seems to keep growing. It's a great way of keeping it.
Well, by my age, you've collected too much, you see. So, but what I think we've reached now is a moment where you can have a real close look at this beautiful piece of art that's been put together by Mandy.
That is amazing.
God. So I'm going to just allow you and Mandy to have a little bit of a chat about that now. Wow, it's beautiful.
So if you can see on the screen, Fiona, I had a picture of a hummingbird and drinking nectar from the stamen of a beautiful blossom and flower. And I got a sense of lots of green leaves as well. But on this particular blossom that the hummingbird was drinking from, it was like a showering of the golden pollen being blown in the wind. So
that's amazing.
Is there anything in particular that strikes you about the picture that's maybe of particular significance, or something that you would like to respond that's in the picture?
It kind of, the first thing that kind of came to mind is just this sense of like God being my sustainer and provider, and how the hummingbird is kind of able to drink that nectar from those flowers that have been provided. And as I was thinking about that, I was thinking a little bit about flowers in the Bible, where Jesus says, like, flowers don't need to worry about like being clothed or being looked after. Like, God has it all in hand and clothes them in such beauty. And I have a little bit of a tendency to worry about stuff and not trust in him as deeply as I want to at times. And so I don't know, that's just kind of reminding me of that I don't need to worry, that he provides.
So I'm going to ask another question. Why do you think I've sketched the scattering of this sort of golden pollen? Do you think there's anything significant in that for you? And it's maybe not in the other flowers. I thought that was quite interesting.
To me, I was thinking about like abundance, like there being more than is necessarily like needed. Like it's so abundant that some of it is just falling, like it's overflowing. Don't know. And then with it being from the one flower that the hummingbird's going to, don't know whether that's kind of again about his provision and his favour.
When you look at that picture, Fiona, do you see yourself like the bird or like the flower?
I can see myself in both of those things to a degree. Like with the hummingbird initially was what I was focusing on, and God's provision. But God has also spoken to me about fruitfulness in my life and expanding fruit. And I don't know, like something about that pollen like falling to the ground, there being something of abundance in there, is something that he's spoken to me about before, that as I focus on his word and his truth, that he will expand the fruit that kind of comes from that. As I choose to kind of focus on his things and not worries or doubts or negative things, that fruitfulness will kind of increase naturally, and it be completely abundant and supernatural and beyond what you would normally see in the natural.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
So how was that for you, Fiona?
As an experience, the whole process, I found it I found myself looking at what you were doing at the time. I don't want to focus on that, and really enjoying the conversation with Heather. I think that really helped me to just kind of relax and not worry too much about what might be coming next. Just to be able to talk together was really great. And then the image that you've drawn does really resonate with several messages that I felt like God has been giving me over the last year or so. And those two elements, really, that kind of provision and that fruitfulness, which is really encouraging. And I do find like I can hold on to pictures of things that he's said to me much easier often than words. I find that words I quite often forget, but an image like that, sometimes that will just come to mind and flash up in my mind, and will remind me of some of the things that he said. So I found that really encouraging to see that image and to know that's something that I can hold on to and meditate on further.
it's a little bit like a fragrance can bring you straight back to a memory as well. And it can be so poignant and really gets to the heart of the matter very quickly, in the same way that a picture does.
Fiona, would you like to know what Mandy felt was going on?
I would love to, yeah.
While she drew that. Okay.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Heather. So the strongest sense that I had when I was drawing the picture and I got excited in my spirit and what I felt God was saying was when I started to draw the pollen, and that was being showered from the middle stamen, and I had a sense of this multiplication and a sense that what God's saying, that when you, a little bit like in Matthew 25, when you steward well what God has given you in your giftings, that there's going to be multiplication from that fruit. And that's what I sensed, that your source, that nectar is the Lord. And and it's just trusting that what he places in your hand, when you steward that well, it's going to multiply. Have that sense of this golden pollen just showering and scattering. And there's that sense of multiplication. What you steward well is going to multiply for others.
Wow.
That's brilliant.
That really resonates with what I was saying earlier about fruitfulness and expansion. So that's really encouraging. It reinforces that. Yeah.
Thank you, Fiona, for the opportunity to just sit down together and see what God might want to say to you to encourage you. I'm just gonna wrap up with a few points now before we finish this demo, and that is to say to those of you who are listening in, watching right now, as well as the actual drawing process, the question process at the end is just as important. And what you might notice from the demo is that Mandy really tried to keep her questions open questions rather than telling the recipient, Fiona, straight off what it was all about. She trusted the Holy Spirit, that the Holy Spirit would help the recipient unpack it for themselves. And this is perhaps particularly important when dealing with people, young people, vulnerable people, children coming for things like this, that we let them lead the process rather than tell them. So that's one different way of using this. And then the second thing is that Fiona herself really introduced the whole God element to this, because she disclosed that God had been speaking to her about similar things already. But sometimes you'll find that you have somebody in front of you who isn't yet a Christian. That's the whole point of the outreach. And they may or may not introduce God into the discussion, and that's okay. If someone like Fiona does do that, then it can give you even greater boldness to then perhaps offer to pray or bless the person before they leave, if you've got time to do that. And so we might do that in closing now. One of the lovely things about that image that now Fiona can take away and keep is the beautiful, light and easy element to it. You know, there's nothing heavy in there. It's light, easy and beautiful. And think that really is encouraging, because whatever we want to convey to people, we want it to be positive and hopeful, and a word of encouragement in visual form. Just before I finished, I just want to give Mandy an opportunity to say anything else that she might want to add, if there is, or Fiona, before we wrap up.
It's just trusting that you do hear God, and to allow, as those first thoughts start to drop in into your mind's eye, that you just allow the pen or the pencil to flow, and enjoy the process as well. It's a creative process that Holy Spirit wants you to enjoy, and that's going to impact the person who's receiving it too.
Very good. Thank you. So this particular approach we learned from a wonderful man called Jörn Lange, and he is one of the people pioneering this and operating this kind of art as outreach in different nations, around the Mediterranean in particular. And if you'd like to learn more, find out more and do a bit more practice of this, then we can let you know that he will be joining us at the Lighthouse at some point in 2021. And you'd be very welcome to access a short course that he'll be doing there. It may be online, it may be in person, depending on where we are with COVID by then. So, keep in touch with us via the website, and we'd be happy to send you an invitation when the time comes at www.thelighthouse.org.uk. Hope you've enjoyed this demo. Bye-bye from us. God bless.